It's Mark McDonald with First United Methodist Church of Batesville again as we continue our study. Today ends 2 weeks of understanding how God speaks. So we've taken 2 weeks to look at that from lots of different angles, but today is one that I think has come to life for me this week, and it is how God speaks through the church. Now, some of you may know if you follow Facebook at all, or you may have heard word around that there was a quote in a Facebook post this week that said that our warming center would not be open because of COVID restrictions. And that itself was not malicious. It was just a statement that was about how we're having to struggle with how we do things over COVID. But it was just a very, very brief statement, and it just set some people on fire because they thought because we weren't opening our warming center that there were people who wouldn't have a place to stay. There were a couple of things that struck me about the interaction that came in the comments. You know how dangerous it is to read the comments. One was, our church is the center of caring for people on cold nights. Our warming center is the only one in town. And it was a shock to many people that we weren't going to be able to open it. And of course, we haven't opened any of our facilities for that amount of time or for that kind of use. And so it was a decision we had to do in order to keep the guidelines of our denomination and many other things. But what it didn't say in that post was that we are working with the Minister Alliance and everybody else to get hotel rooms for people if they don't have a place to live and stay on those cold nights. So even though we couldn't open the warming center, we were investing ourselves in helping people find places they could stay individually. And Barrett Moore, our council chair, jumped in and helped reorganize that and get the word out around about it. And it was interesting. Our church is central to that. But the other thing that struck me that really I was reminded of that in today's devotional or today's study lesson in this workbook is there were people that had some of the meanest comments about church. That this is why I don't go to church. What's wrong with you as a Christian? Jesus would have done it. I mean, there were so many almost venomous comments on that. And it struck me. A lot of people have been hurt by the church. You know what I mean? If you're in church, you know what I mean because you've been hurt by church. I certainly have. As a pastor, I've been hurt by the church many times in ways that were totally unexpected. But there are a lot of people who got hurt by the church and don't want to be part of it. And it struck me, as you read through today's lesson, I want you to think about the power of our witness when we are the church. Because scripturally, the church is not just a building. It's not a building at all. It is the body of Christ. That's one of Paul's illustrations for it, but it is a powerful one because it reminds us that our body has many parts. So many of us do different things in the church, but if we do those things by ourselves, what do people see? People see an imperfect person. They see our sinfulness. Our hope is that when we come together, we act more like Christ by lifting up the strengths in all the different parts of the body, so that our weaknesses are overcome and Christ lives through us. God speaks through the body of Christ. So the question for today is a very relevant one, today and every day, but especially in light of how many people have been hurt and pushed out by the church. The question for today is, how can we help the church become the body of Christ? Or more specifically in this workbook lesson, how can we help God speak through the church today? I've seen some people do that in wonderful ways this week, but I know there are a lot of people that have still been hurt by churches. And it's our job to do everything we can to stay focused, not on our doctrines or the truth with a small t, not on the things that we think are important or what we want, but the capital T, truth. To be the body of Christ, to bring grace and hope into the world. How can we help the church be the place that God speaks through today? Be the church today.